Hi, this is Alan from digitalDrummer, and we're looking at the aD5, which is the newest module from a new company, ATV Corporation. We're going to be looking at how it sets up, and we're going to be looking at how it plays with a variety of triggers, because for now all we're getting from ATV Corporation is a module. There are no pads to go with it, so what you get is a module that you have to either put on your existing kit or buy pads to use with. So we're going to have a look at the module, and we're going to look at how we're going to be testing it. We're going to be testing this with a bunch of different triggers, different pads, different symbols, just to see how it performs. And I'll quickly run through our test bed for this module. Snare, we're using a Roland PD128. That's a dual zone mesh head pad. This time is a mesh head triggered by an external trigger, in this case a DDT external trigger. Over here we have an Aquarian onHEAD. So that's a single zone. And as a floor tom, we're using a Diamond Electronic Drums 14-inch dual zone mesh snare. For cymbals, we're using a 3-zone Roland ride and a 2-zone 682 drums crash. And then just for fun, we're using a Pintech bar trigger. That of course is a single zone. And on bass, we're using a Yamaha kick. I had originally intended to test this with a Roland VH12, but that's not a module currently supported by the firmware. I've used something similar. This is a VH11 style hi-hat. This version is from GOE drums. So we have a mix of Yamaha, Roland, Aquarian, DDT, Diamond 682 drums. So we're pretty much testing it with what might be found on any kit out there at the moment. This is the aD5 module. Very different in its layout, not quite like anything we've seen before, but quite easy to navigate and to learn your way around. And here's the rear panel, dominated by the multi-trigger harness over here. This is where most of the pads are connected. There are 2 auxiliary pads that are connected direct in. Some people will of course be interested to see that there are 2 outputs, a mono left and a mono right. There's a USB, which at this stage doesn't have much functionality, and there's an Ethernet connection there, which again does not have much functionality at this stage, but probably will get some in a future firmware update. And for those interested in loading their own samples, this is no doubt where that will happen when that functionality is unlocked. There's an SD card slot right on the back. First step, of course, when you get the module home and connect up your pads, is to calibrate a pad. And I'd like to just quickly run through how we do that. So we start by going to the menu. We choose System and Trigger. So there you see we have 2 wizards, one which is going to help you train the pads and one which will help you with crosstalk. So let's start off with the trigger setup wizard. When you do that, it actually wants you to hit a pad so it knows which one it's training. So let's start with the snare. So I hit it and it's already worked out that it's the snare that we're going to be testing. So that's correct, we go yes. Now as you can see, there are a couple of different manufacturers represented. So there's Roland, Drumtech and Yamaha. For now these are the presets. You have a choice of 3 sets of presets, as it were. So the pad that we're doing is a Roland. You go over there and you get pretty much all of the current crop of Roland triggers. So the one that we're doing is a PD125 or 128, and then we just go next. So now it's telling me to lightly tap or softly tap the head 3 times. So this is going to measure your softest registered hits, in other words. So it's pretty important that you try and do it as softly as possible, and you need to make sure that each of them registers. So there you go, it's registered those, and we go next. Now it's trying to gauge our top end, so we want 3 strong hits. And we got those. Now it wants to measure rim shot, so let's do 3 rim shots. Those were 3 strong rim shots. Your setup is now complete. Do you want to set up other pads? For now we won't do that. So we'll go no. The crosstalk wizard obviously you will do at the end when all of your pads are set up. But that's basically as easy as it gets to start. However, this is really just a starting point. This is a kind of stock setting. Now there are a couple of editing options just from there. So here we have sensitivity, which can be boosted or dropped. So it goes down a fair amount. And you would obviously do that while playing and listening. And then you also have a bunch of curves, and it shows you how those curves actually look, which is pretty useful. Then the other thing that you can edit and adjust is threshold, and of course the head rim adjustment. You don't want the rim triggering when you're close to the edge and vice versa. So you have some control there. And then, of course, if this was a hi-hat, you would have some further options with that. So that pretty much is the configuration, a bunch of stock trigger settings associated to specific pads at the moment, from which you modify to your own personal taste.